In Raiders of the Lost Ark, the armies of darkness seek the Ark of the Covenant to make them an invincible army. But they've forgotten one thing. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The power of God cannot be tamed by anyone. What's your favorite Indiana Jones movie? Let's talk about that in the comments. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my theological review for Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or as it was just called in 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, if you follow my channel for any length of time, you know I love Indiana Jones. I got a playlist where some years back, me and my buddy Rapthorn, we reviewed all of the Indiana Jones movies. I've ranked all the Indiana Jones movies. I've talked about The Last Crusade on more than one occasion. Because of all the Indiana Jones movies, The Last Crusade is my favorite. But Raiders is a very close second to being my favorite, like almost tied with it, because, come on, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's such a classic, and it's so unbelievably good, which is why I don't need an excuse to talk about it other than I just happened to rewatch it because it popped up on Netflix. So I'm super excited to dive into this movie, and when I watched it over the weekend, some things popped into my mind, and I'm super excited to share those things with you. And I gotta say a huge thank you to Film Trigger. My good friend Steve over there, Film Trigger, just jumped on board as a supporter of Durbania, one of my patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much, Steve, for that. And one way you can say thank you to Steve over at Film Trigger for becoming a patron here on Durbania is to check out his channel and his reviews and his videos. He has a fantastic channel, lots of great stuff over there. I'll have the link to his channel in the description below, as well as the link to my Patreon page. So, what is your favorite of all the Indiana Jones movies? Let's talk about that in the comments. One of the first things I noticed as I was rewatching Raiders of the Lost Ark is this major fundamental misunderstanding everybody seems to have about the Ark of the Covenant. Now, they're supposed to have this misunderstanding because it's the character arc, it's the growth, it's the plot, as Indiana Jones learns to have some reverence and fear for the power of God. But when you get into the beginning of this movie, here's the first misunderstanding.
An army which carries the Ark before it is invincible.
Followed later in the movie by Belloc saying this.
It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God. And it's within my reach.
And what I think these two fundamental misunderstandings have in common is this. It's this idea that the Ark is really a magic lamp. And if they get a hold of the magic lamp, then the genie that lives inside is now under their control. So when they make their three wishes, the genie will grant them their three wishes. They're not looking at this as the awesome power of God. They're looking at this as a relic, and if I could capture the relic and its power, it's mine. So what is the Ark of the Covenant? The Ark of the Covenant is that. It's the sign of God's covenant between him and his chosen people. It is a golden chest. And one of the main things inside the golden chest is the 10 Commandments. These stones where God, with his own finger, wrote out the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not kill. You will have no other God before me. Love God above all else and love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's that moral law, that covenant that he wants his people to walk in. He's writing on that stone the change he wants them to have in their heart to walk in love. And that's what the Ark of the Covenant is. It is the sign of that covenant between God and his chosen people. Belloc thinking it will be his radio transmitter to God. Hitler, as he's going out and trying to get all these religious artifacts, here he is thinking this is going to be his power, making his dark army invincible. In other words, here they are thinking that the power of God is completely tameable, that it's not connected to a personality with a mind and a will, and if they just get a hold of this ark, well then, that just simply means that this power belongs to them. There's no humility or reverence for it. It makes me go all the way back to what C.S. Lewis said in the Chronicles of Narnia. He is not a tame lion. Here they are thinking that they could tame God by getting hold of this relic, and yet nothing could be further from the truth. And all they had to do Let's go just a little bit back into their history and see that. When you look at 1 Samuel chapter 4 and chapter 5, you really sort of see the truth of this play out, because you have Israel, they've been walking in some sin here, and so they've been losing some battles against the Philistines. So they go get the Ark of the Covenant, and they go to bring that into battle with them to rally the troops. And they lose, and the Philistines capture the Ark. So here you have the Philistines taking the Ark, and again, looking at it as kind of a religious relic with power, right? They know about the signs in Egypt and how God delivered the Israelites out of Egypt. And so they thought it was just, Israel having all kinds of gods, and they were kind of scared of those gods. But now they got the Ark. Woohoo! They got this power. They take it and they put it in the temple of their god, Dagon. But overnight, the idol of Dagon falls flat on its face before the Ark of the Covenant, as if it's laying on its face, worshiping the Hebrew God. So when they come in the morning and discover this, they take the idol and they set it back up. During the night, it falls flat on its face before the Ark again. But this time, the head of the idol breaks off, the arms break off, it's this broken statue, and it really freaked them out. And then, these tumors in them developed, these plagues came, and they couldn't get rid of the Ark fast enough. They put the thing on a wagon to send it back to the Israelites. So in other words, they had this relic, they had this power, but it was untamable. So untamable that the darkness fell on its face before the Ark. We see something very similar play out in Raiders of the Lost Ark. One of my absolute favorite scenes of this movie, I love it, is when Indiana Jones and Marion, they get out of the Well of Souls, and Indy's got to go reclaim the Ark. As the Nazis put it in the crate, they put the Nazi symbol on the crate, goes in the back of the truck. Indiana Jones goes under the truck, above the truck, knocks out the driver, gets the Ark back. Yeah! I love that scene. Anyway, they take the Ark and they put it in the cargo bay of the ship. During the night, that mouse does its little woo, woo, woo thing, and the Nazi symbol gets burned off the crate. To me, that's God sending a signal to the Nazis. He's sending a signal to the armies of darkness. He's saying, you are not going to tame me. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Some translations say, has not understood it. So here's the darkness trying to understand, trying to tame, trying to control the light. But the light will not be controlled. When you walk into a dark room and you flip on a light switch, is there a war? Does a battle ensue in that room between light and dark, and you sit there wondering who's going to win this battle? No, because darkness is simply the absence of light. The moment you flip on that light switch, there ain't a fight. The darkness is gone. It flees before the light. So here, the Nazi symbol gets burned off that crate, like God's warning to them, don't you dare go seeking after this power to manipulate it and bend it to your will. This is your warning. And so you know what they do? They dare, they go, they recapture the Ark, they get it on that island, and we saw how this ends.
Don't look right! Keep your eyes shut!
Yeah, they went seeking the power of God to try to tame it and bend it to their will. That unrepentant, prideful darkness went there seeking to control the light. And what happened? They flipped on the light switch. Yeah. And Indiana Jones's approach to this was to say, shut your eyes, Marion. To me, that was an act of faith. Walking by faith, not by sight. Closing their eyes, him having that fear, awe, and reverence for God's power. And he was saved by his faith. So what we see here is the approach of the Nazis. Their approach? To let darkness reign in their lives, to let that evil reign, and with such pride that they thought they could take God's power and tame it and beat it and manipulate it to what they want it to be. And they found that they were incredibly wrong. But it was Indiana Jones's approach, going by faith, showing humility and reverence where he was saved. Sometimes we might be afraid because God's power is awesome. And if we come to God with the darkness that is in us, with the junk that is in us, well, Does he have a lightning bolt with my name on it? I can tell you, he does not. God didn't send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Jesus came to rescue you. And whatever darkness might be there in your heart, when we let Jesus into the deepest corners of that and let him have all of it, guess what? He is so powerful that darkness has to bow before him. The way Dagon fell on its face before the Ark of the Covenant. The way that light and fire just leapt up from the Ark and took care of the armies of darkness. When we let Jesus come into our heart, that darkness doesn't tame him. Instead, he utterly defeats it and makes us into new creations. The way God wrote the Ten Commandments on stone with his finger, Jeremiah prophesied the new covenant, God would write his laws on our hearts. Romans 8:11 says, the spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. Back in Old Testament times, God's power came upon. Now that Jesus took care of our sin and he took care of that darkness, God comes to live within us and makes his home in our heart. So today, we don't have to be afraid to let him in. As we come before him humbly with reverence for his power, the darkness has to bow. So what did you think of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark? What is your favorite Indiana Jones movie? Let's talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian and hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified the next time I do another theological review, movie review, ranking video, or anything else that I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.